Hey, it's Anna. Welcome back to my channel, and I wasn't fully expecting to make a video about this, but I thought it would be really fun. So I'm somebody that is very lucky enough to live by two major airports, and so most of my flights have always been direct flights. However, I have to go on a work trip to Redmond, Oregon, and there are no direct flights. So that means that I will be experiencing layovers for the first time. It's the longest I've ever flown. I usually have ear issues, so I figured let's turn this into a travel reading type of style vlog and see how much I can get through during the travel. So anytime I'm in the air, I'm typically not working, and I am traveling during Labor Day, so I'm not really too worried about that, obviously, because my entire company is off for Labor Day. I thought it would be a really good travel day. I am flying back on Wednesday, and because I have to go to quite a few places in Oregon, I'm going to be driving a lot, so we have quite a bit of audiobook time too, actually. So I figured, let me show you what I'm gonna bring with me. Let's see how much I can actually read. I am very excited to unexpectedly have this reading time, because whenever I do travel in the air, I feel like I get just like a lot more done because I'm completely unplugged. Let's see what we got. First up, I'm bringing Immortal Longings because I'm meeting Chloe Gong in about 2 weeks, and it is for Violess Things. First up, we have Immortal Longings. I'm meeting Chloe Gong in 2 weeks. It is for the release of Violess Things, so I definitely want to finish this. I have been reading some of this book this morning, and I'm not counting it towards this vlog because I don't want to start counting my total reading time until I actually get in my car to go to my first destination, which is my parents' house. So I just want to say I might be reading this. However, I do not have too much left, and I do have some additional time to read before I leave. So I might finish this one before even really talking about it, but I just wanted to acknowledge that as of right now, I haven't finished it. It might show up again, but we'll see. And then I'm very lucky to receive an e-arc of this book for Violess Things, and this video is coming out on the day of the Violess Things release, so that is really exciting. So I am hopeful to, if not finish it during this vlog, get very, very close. However, I will say the one thing about this duology is, at least my experience with Immortal Longing so far, is it is just heavy world building, and it almost makes my eyes just like more tired trying to comprehend everything that's going on with the world building and learning about, you know, the society that we're in. If you haven't read Immortal Longings, I don't think this is going to be anything spoilery, so you can stick around. You are following Kala and Anton and August, so you have three characters that you're mainly following. I did almost put up a 4, but it's just 3. I know how to count. Kala is this exiled, long lost, however you want to phrase it, princess that is competing in this competition where 88 folks in the Twin Cities of San-Air will compete against each other, and the winner gets these huge spoils. However, she's competing because she wants to get rid of the king in power, because she ended up getting rid of her parents and the other royal bloodline. So this king is the last person really left in the royal bloodline, and she wants him gone. She doesn't want to take over though. She doesn't believe in the kingdom anymore, so that's her goal. And then we have Anton, who had some ties to the royal palace. He is keeping one of the royals' half-siblings alive because they had a connection when they were younger. So he is playing because he has ran up too much debt. And then we have August, who is the prince. He is kind of manipulating the whole situation, and he wants to overthrow the king and have himself be the king. So we have those 3 perspectives that we're following. You have this concept of jumping, where your soul or your ki, I think is how it's pronounced, it's QI, and your ki can jump to another person's body as long as somebody else isn't already in that body. And so that concept of jumping, you see a light, and so you have this, like, you know, science fiction type of aspect brought into the dystopian aspect of a competition where people are killing each other. It's just a lot. It's not bad, but it is just a bit overwhelming to follow along, because I feel like even at this point, I'm still learning more and more about the world. So I really don't know if this one is just a lot of world building focused, and then we're gonna get into more action in this next book. I'm not really sure. So just a heads up there, I am enjoying this. I am very excited to meet Chloe Gong next week, so I definitely want to get these done. However, I know myself, I'm gonna want a break, so I'm bringing 2 other books with me physically, and then of course I have my audiobook selection. Both of these books are book club picks. I like to get the book club picks out of the way early in the month, and because I tab them, I remember them better than a book that I don't tab, so I feel confident reading them early enough. Our first book club book is Before We Were Strangers. This is for my in-person book club. I have my little tabs ready to go. I try my best to match the covers when I tab. I just think it's fun. I don't know the reason I choose 3 every time. It's just nice to cycle through the colors on the side of my book club books. So I have not heard anything about this. The front says a love crossed out, hate crossed out love story. So I'm really interested to see what it's about. It also doesn't look too long, and the text looks very forgiving, if that makes sense. So like, I feel like the text looks bigger versus in Immortal Longings, where the text just looks a bit smaller. Obviously on my Kindle can like manipulate that. So I'm not worried for Viola's things, but I'm definitely interested to switch up the genres too. The back starting point says A Missed Connection, A Second Chance at Love. So clearly we are looking down the face of a romance book, but it's just titles fiction. So maybe it'll be one of those like sad romance books. I'm not really sure, but I am glad to be bringing this along because I have 2 fantasy/sci-fi books. I have this romance book, and then the third book I'm bringing, which is our virtual book club pick this month, is Death of a Bookseller. These are my tabs that I'm going to bring with. It's definitely a thicker book, which is fine by me. I have more time to read it. Okay, so I just opened the book and this little paper fell out, so we're going to read that in a second. The text, again, I feel like looks forgiving compared to Immortal Longings, which is nice. I know that this has some like true crime ties, things like that. We read the description as a book club, but I kind of forgot about it. But I know that this is a very different genre than just the romance book that I have on one side and then the sci-fi fantasy books that I have on the other. So I like to switch up genres sometimes on planes, keep myself awake, especially since I'm changing time zones so much. So I'm very excited to have all of these in hand. Let's read this little slip. Okay, it says Death of a Proofreader, Novelli of a Nevelin. I don't know what that is. The first glimmer of inspiration for the horrible book in your hands came to me in 2016. It took 7 years for it to go from a vague idea in my overtired bookseller brain to 100,000 words of carefully polished prose. But it only took 1 second for a rogue computer error to corrupt the file and leave a number of mysterious errors lurking in its pages. Keep a lookout for the words Novelli and Nibelin. We don't know what they mean or which vengeful spirit planted them in my work, but we do know I shall remain haunted by them for the rest of my days. Please find the corrected words on the back of this slip, and we hope this doesn't interrupt your reading experience too badly. Thank you so much for reading. It really does mean the world. Alice. Interesting. Okay. I'm curious if this comes with every book. I definitely got to ask the book club. So there are 8 different instances where it has that Novelli or Nevelin word. I'm really interested to see how accurate that is. Okay, so I went to the first page because the phrase is I toweled off, and I didn't think that was gonna be a spoiler. And it does say I Novelli off. That's really interesting. This does look like it's a first edition from 2023. I'm super interested to now reach out to book club and see if they found that out. So just a fun little quirky thing we found out while packing for our trip. For audiobooks, I have about an hour and a half left of The Weight of Blood. I have about an hour drive to my parents' house, so I'm definitely gonna listen to that. I might finish it before I get to their house too. I'm not really sure what time I'm leaving to their house, so I just want to say I might be listening to a little bit of The Weight of Blood. I have thoroughly enjoyed The Weight of Blood. I think it is a very unique audiobook format. It's done in this podcast style because you are focusing around this massacre in Springville, and the podcast is following Maddie Washington, who committed the crimes of that night, and trying to backtrack to figure out kind of how she committed the crimes. There's not many witnesses alive, so I definitely think it's very interesting. It does have a lot of focus on race because Maddie is biracial, but her dad has been forcing her to hide it her entire time, and this all kind of sparks when people find out that Maddie is biracial. So I've really liked it, really liked the audiobook format, really loved all of the narrators. I feel like they do a really good job utilizing the full cast, so I've been enjoying it, which is the only reason why I might finish it before I leave to my parents' house, again, depending on what time we leave. And then the second audiobook I have, which I'm very glad that nobody is going to be traveling in the car with me while I'm listening to these audiobooks. I have my own rental car and everything because the audiobook is Twisted by Emily McIntyre. I've listened to the first 3 in this series, and so I know they're a little bit of like darker romances, and I'm totally chill in my own ears with dark romance, but like with another employee, I don't know how comfortable I would be with them listening to it with me. I have no idea what Twisted is about though. My favorite so far has been Scarred. I know that. So I forget who Twisted even follows. There's a diamond on the front. I don't know, Snow White. There are dwarves that mine diamonds in that book. I really don't know. So I'll be as surprised as you are. Or you might be looking at this and saying, Anna, maybe you should just read the descriptions. Oh well, I'm not going to. So that's what I have on the docket. My flight plans are, I leave the Chicago airport at 7:10 on Labor Day, and then I fly to Denver. I have a 2.5 layover in Denver, then I go to Redmond, and then I pretty much land in Redmond at like 1 o'clock, which is 3 o'clock my traditional time, and then I'll be able to get to my hotel, get settled, get some reading, maybe some work done ahead of time. We'll just see how I'm feeling from the flights. I usually have to take Motrin on all of my flights, and it's just not going to work with the timing. And then Tuesday, working all day. I already know I'm probably going to have about like 2 to 3 hours of driving to do that day, so I'll probably be pretty tired. And then my flight leaves from Oregon at 6 a.m., which I thought was fine because that's 8 a.m. Central, so I'll be able to get back on my regular schedule pretty quick. I I fly to San Francisco, have a 45-minute layover in San Francisco. I am slightly nervous about that as somebody who's never had layovers, but I feel like it's a smaller plane and I'm closer to the front, so I'm not worried about getting off one of those like really big jet engines. So that's at least a positive. And then from San Francisco to Chicago, which is 4 hours and 25 minutes. So I feel like I will have a lot of time to get through quite a bit of these books. If I am able to finish Immortal Longings before I go, it's just one less book to pack, but my books don't really take up that much space. So I'm overall excited to get going, and I've never been to Oregon before, so I'm curious to see what that looks like. I've also never been to California, even though I'll only be in California for 45 minutes. I am just excited to have a little bit of travel and to see how much can be read, because I know not everyone can read while traveling, but I feel like I do a pretty good job at it. So I'm very, very hopeful that I will be able to get quite a bit done. So let's get headed to my parents' house first, and that drive to my parents' house I will count as reading travel time, and any reading I do at my parents' house, I will also count that towards this vlog. So let's see if I actually get any time in. All right, I am getting gas before going to my parents' house. I did finish Immortal Longings, so I am really excited to start Viola's Things during this reading travel time, and I'm going to be buddy reading it with a friend, but obviously that's going to be a little funky in terms of like travel and chapters, so we're just going to stay in communication about the whole thing. And then I also started Death of a Bookseller, and I am currently listening to The Weight of Blood, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish during this drive down. But this drive officially marks the traveling and reading, so I am excited to see how far I can get with everything. I'm also super excited to go to Oregon and see, you know, what a state on the West Coast looks like, because I actually haven't ever been to a state on the West Coast, so I think it'll be a really fun time. But we're gonna kick it off strong with hopefully finishing The Weight of Blood in this car ride. All right, y'all, I made it to my parents' house. I finished The Weight of Blood. I feel like I'm gonna give that book at least a 4 out of 5 stars. This is why I feel like I'm so bad at book reviews, because I feel like I just want to sit with the book for a little bit. I feel like you know from the beginning how it's gonna end, but it's a lot more about the journey getting there, and I really liked reading about the journey getting there. I was definitely frustrated with characters, but I think that's how you're supposed to feel. And then you don't get 100% resolution at the end, in my opinion. Like, you can make an assumption, and I feel like it's a pretty good assumption, but if any book had an epilogue, I wish it was this one. So that's the only thing, but overall I did really enjoy it. I loved the use of the full audiobook cast, so overall 10 out of 10. And then we have Twisted, which is actually Jasmine and Jafar's story. That's not their actual names. You have Yasmin and Julian, and I've only listened to 2 chapters of it, but that's at least the start of it. It's not about Snow White. The diamond is because Yasmin's father owns Sultan Diamonds, so that makes more sense. Would not have guessed it though, definitely not. So that means I'm going to start reading Viola's Things. I've already read the first chapter, so I'm going to be reading at least 2 to 4 more chapters of this, and then I'm going to see what time it is / see what my buddy reader thinks. If I get to those chapters and my buddy reader isn't responding, then I'm going to keep reading Death of a Bookseller. This is probably what I will flip between with Viola's Things. I might switch to Before We Were Strangers, but I definitely want to get a good way into this book because we're meeting virtually first before I meet with the book club in person, so I want to get through this one first. This is the second book in the Immortal Longings duology, so definitely just be aware of that. I feel like this is one of those books where it's like I don't know how people have waited so long between books, because my friend and I agreed we were actually going to start this on Labor Day, and then I finished Immortal Longings today and was like, do you want to start it today? Because I have questions that I would like answered. So I feel extremely lucky for this arc. Can't wait to read it. Can't wait to meet Chloe Gong too, so I'm super excited to be prioritizing this. How the day looks tomorrow is that my flight departs at 7:10 in the morning, so we're gonna get there pretty early, and then I have a lengthy layover at Denver, but I'm really hoping I can get into one of the lounges there and then fly the rest of the way to Redmond and then see how I operate on Pacific time, because I'm already tired and it's only like 7 o'clock here, and that's only 5 o'clock on the West Coast, so that's gonna be really interesting to see how that goes. So I got my heating pad warmed up. I'm gonna start reading Viola's Things. We'll see how much I can get read tonight, and then hopefully tomorrow is going to be a very successful reading and travel day. All right, I'm all checked into the hotel, so I wanted to do a little room tour. We have your bathroom here. It's pretty large. And then there's a door with a mirror. Super fun. Little area. like a cabinet. Bathroom, TV, workstation, another chill station, the bed, which I am very excited to sleep in. Let me show you my view. That's what we're working with. And that storm system is causing some headaches. All right, it has been a travel day. My first flight was delayed like almost 2 hours, and I had a 2-hour and 40-minute layover that then turned into like a 20-minute layover at Denver. Made my flight, clearly because I'm in the hotel. And I'm someone that I have a lot of ear issues in terms of like doctors always think I've had tubes in my ears because I had so many ear infections as a kid. So flying always is tough. And this was the longest flights I've taken. I could definitely feel it when we were descending. I was like, ooh, this is rough. But I did get quite a bit of reading done, and I'm very proud of myself. Buyless things I am buddy reading. I was able to send all of my thoughts. I got through chapter 20. And I just gotta say this about duologies. I feel like there's a lot of lore that we got added to this second book. I don't realistically know how this book is going to end. And I feel like that's sometimes just my problem with like duologies is I almost want to get to a place where like the first book gives me a lot of the lore and the second book gives more of the action, but I understand how that could be really boring, so you kind of have to mix both. I feel like the action that I've seen in this I have also liked, and I really like how Chloe Gong is doing the multiple perspectives in this. I will say too, this is an adult book, but like I feel like she just says the F word a lot. I don't know. At least in this book. In the first book there was like one spicier scene. You could say I feel like it wasn't that terrible. And then maybe I guess like the gore context of it, but yeah, this doesn't scream adult to me personally. But I am 56% of the way through it, which is very exciting because 2 days ago I was at 0%, so loving that. And then we have Death of a Bookseller, which I am almost a third of the way through. Maybe I'm officially a third of the way through. I forget how many pages total it is, but I'm currently on page 130. So I think I'm getting close to where I could confidently say I'm more than a third of the way because I don't think this is more than 400 pages. This is something. This is a book club book, so I'm gonna finish it no matter what. But I just gotta say, I don't fully know where this is going, so maybe I need to read the description. Yeah, I really still don't know where we're going, even based off reading the description briefly. I feel like this is very character driven, and I'm just not the biggest character driven girly, and I feel like nobody's a good character in this, which is not a bad thing. That's just how I feel. I feel like there's not gonna be somebody that I'm like, yeah, rooting for. Everyone kind of has like a quality where I'm like, I don't know if I ever would root for you personally, but that does not make a bad book. I have tabbed it a little bit, which is very exciting. I can't wait to see it continue to fill up with tabs. And then I've listened only a little bit more to Twisted. I haven't done as much driving today. Tomorrow's gonna be the big driving day where I'm gonna listen to a lot more of Twisted. I'm not angry at Twisted. I think it's an interesting concept still of flipping, again, the Disney villains on their heads and giving them these like darker romance stories. At least I think they're darker romance. I actually don't know fully if this is darker romance, but it feels like a little more taboo romance, if that makes sense. They are already talking about an age gap. I will say our main male character was like, yeah, I wasn't interested in her as a teenager at all, and he still isn't fully interested in her yet, but I think it's gonna obviously develop. So that's where we are there. That means that the only book that I haven't touched is Before We Were Strangers, which did get a little bit beat up in my backpack. Oopsie daisy. This is 308 pages, so I feel like I can get through this, like I said, pretty quick. I do want to start this, hopefully today. That's kind of my goal, is I almost want to flip between the two book club books. I don't necessarily know if I want to read any more of Vilest Things today, not because I'm not enjoying it, but because since I am buddy reading it, and we had initially said that we were going to read like 3 to 5 chapters yesterday, and then 5 to 8 chapters today, and I've read 20 chapters. So I got to give my friend like a little bit of time to catch up. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I would love to read for the rest of the day. That is not going to happen. I am going to check work, and then I need a shower, and then this will be my treat afterwards, is to start this book. Like I said, I feel like the text is really big. It would be great to get part of the way through the book. I like actually reading multiple books at the same time, and as long as this is a different vibe from Death of a Bookseller, because I don't think it's like Vilest Things at all, which I'm pretty sure this is different than Death of a Bookseller, because I thought Death of the Bookseller might be like a sapphic romance, but haven't gotten any of that in the first third. So I feel like this is going to be the romance pick, and I don't think it's a dark darker romance, but maybe it will be, so maybe it might be a little in line with Twisted, but I do want to try giving this a little bit of a read tonight. So I'm gonna check work, I don't know for how long, and then shower and then read. My goal is to stay up until 8 p.m. Pacific. I want to essentially stay on Central Time while I'm in the Pacific time zone, especially because I don't actually have to be anywhere for work tomorrow until 9, but it would be good to catch up with my boss before I head out in the morning. So that's kind of what I'm balancing with right now, is work, and then I would, like I said, I would love to read, but I can already sense that my phone is gonna have a ton of email notifications, and I just want to try to get rid of as many as possible for tomorrow. I gotta set my out of office, so I got a few work things to do, but I'm hopeful. It is only like 3:30 here. I've already had dinner. Oops. I do have snacks in case I get hungry later. So I am, I've always said that I personally think the best time zone that I would want to work in would be Mountain. I feel like that would be my favorite time zone to work in. I never said Pacific and I never said the East Coast. So this is definitely going to be an adjustment, but I'm really proud of how much I've read. Let's see how much more I can read today. I literally just sat down to check my email. I literally have to show you all. This is legitimately why I need to check my email, because my mailbox is full. And if I didn't check it before going to work tomorrow, I would have gotten no work emails, and I can tell you there would have been some very upset people. Let's clear out this inbox so I can get reading. All right, it is the next day. The sun has not even risen yet, but I'm going to get going. I have to print out some papers before I actually get to any of the sites that I am driving to today. So that's going to be my initial #1 priority. And I am also going to eat breakfast. So I'm either going to be listening to Twisted, or I think the book that I'm going to carry around with me is Before We Were Strangers. I am 30 pages into this. I'm definitely intrigued in terms of this idea of like what the second chance romance looks like, and the main male character was married before this, but he said he still thought of this woman, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know exactly where obviously the book is going to go quite yet, and all the chapters right now are from Matt's perspective, who's our main male character, and I'm curious if we're going to get any from Grace's perspective and when that's going to happen. So I want to bring this with me to at least breakfast, and then I've already pretty much emailed my team and just said, hey, if you need me, call me. I'm going to be driving most of the day. If you need me to do any computer work, it's just going to have to be once I return to my hotel. I'm planning to be gone from my hotel between 8 a.m. and probably like 3:34 p.m. So the entire workday essentially is going to be out of the office. I already checked into my flight tomorrow. My flight lands at San Francisco at 7:45, and then my next flight boards at 7:50. Fun for me. I know there are later flights from San Francisco to Chicago later in the day, so like if I need to rebook, I can rebook. And I am right next to the bathrooms on my flight from San Francisco to Chicago, which is like a 4.5 hour flight. So at least I don't have to go very far, and I am in an aisle seat with extra legroom, so I'm like very, very grateful. So, but what I did notice about the aisle seats without extra legroom is that they don't have tray tables, and I usually place my book on tray tables. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes once I get back on the plane. But I'm hopeful today to get at least an additional hour, if not 2 hours in with Twisted. It depends legitimately on how many phone calls I get during the day. And then I also do want to get a little bit farther in Before We Were Strangers. There are 308 pages, so I definitely want to get to at least a third, ideally before switching back to another book. Or if my friend does catch up with buddy reading on Viola's Things, then I'll switch back to Viola's Things. But yeah, I definitely want to just give all of the books that I brought a chance, and I'm really glad I did. This seems like it'll go by really fast, I must say. I feel like I read those 30 pages in like 15 minutes. That's what it felt like anyway. I doubt that's my actual reading speed, but it's just what it felt like. So gonna bring this with, gonna go have breakfast, and then start driving around Oregon and seeing what Oregon is all about. All right, I am finished with traveling in Oregon for work. I am just here for another night. I got myself a nice acai bowl, and my plan is to just chill. I have to stay awake ideally for another 2.5 hours, and then I should be on schedule to wake up at 4 a.m., which is my usual 6 a.m. I did wake up decently early today, so I feel like I'm still on that same circadian rhythm schedule, so I should be good for my flight tomorrow. I am nervous because of how short my layover is and the time between boarding boarding, but I think I can do it as much as I can control what happens with planes. In terms of reading, I am now officially about 3 hours through Twisted. I can see obviously where it's going. I think part of knowing the Disney stories that inspire Twisted is like you kind of know where they're going. But of course, like little curveballs are thrown along the way, and we're currently in one of those curveballs right now. I like both narrators, which is good. I just think that the female narrator doesn't do as good of male voices, and that the male narrator doesn't do as good of female voices. So that's, I mean, it makes sense. That's why you have two different narrators. So that's my only like one little critique there. And I'm potentially going to keep listening to it tonight. I kind of want to edit this video a bit, but I have a pretty nasty headache, which makes sense, just I think being by the mountain and the different air. So I might just chill and drink some water. I have not read Vilest Things or Death of a Bookseller today, but this morning I did read Before We Were Strangers, like I was talking about, and I got to page 92. I feel like that went by super quick this morning. I don't even think I read this for a full hour and got like 60 pages in. So if there's one book I feel like I can finish while traveling, it's this one. And I don't know if it's because of the font sizes or the content. I really think it's because of the font size. That's just me personally. I'm not enjoying it. I actually think it's pretty interesting in terms of the perspectives that we're getting, and I'm curious to see where the relationship between our two main characters is going to go, because again, this is a love-hate love story, and right now we're in the love part, but I'm curious how we get to the hate part. That's what I'm kind of waiting for. And then obviously I'm most curious about going from hate to love. We'll see what happens, and this might be what I focus on the plane. So I don't know, just to like try to finish a book, because I feel like that would be really fun to actually finish a book while traveling. I feel like if I started this earlier, I obviously would have been like quite a bit farther, but we'll see. And then tomorrow I have to wake up at 4 a.m. Flight is at 6 a.m. Land at 7:45, and then my layover is 45 minutes, but boarding starts at 7:50. So we're just gonna see. We're gonna see how it goes. I already pre-ordered food on a plane. I feel like most people don't order like the snack boxes or whatever, but on my plane they did have like a yogurt parfait to buy, and I was like, okay, you know what? That'd actually be good for lunch. And then I did treat myself to a snack box, because I don't know, I feel like I've always wanted one. This will also be my first time, I really think, ever sitting in an aisle seat on a plane. I don't think I've ever done that. I've always either gotten window or middle. I don't think I've ever sat in an aisle seat. So this will be really interesting to see how that goes. Really hope my headache goes away tonight when I sleep. We'll see what happens. And maybe it's just because my eyes are tired. I don't know. So I'm either gonna listen to Twisted or I'm gonna read more of Before We Were Strangers tonight and just see how this last little trip goes. I'm proud of the amount that I've still been able to read during this trip, and we'll see how tomorrow goes, because I knew today was going to be the least amount that I would read, and then obviously tomorrow with like 7 hours of flying, I feel like I can get a decent amount read. So the next time you hear from me, I'll either be in my car or I'll be in my home setup. So let's see which one I'm at. I am officially home from traveling. I am super excited to be here, and I am really proud of how much reading I was able to do during a work trip. I have worked the entire day today on this Thursday, so no additional reading yet for me, which is good, because then I know exactly how much I've listened to of the audiobooks and all of that. So speaking of the audiobooks, I did listen to 1 hour of The Weight of Blood. I have listened to 5.5 hours of Twisted. I don't know, it's okay. Like, I think it's definitely not my least favorite of the Emily McIntyre books for sure. So I don't know what I'm going to rate it yet, because I still have about 5 hours left to go, but I've listened to 5.5 hours. Very proud of myself there. So total audiobook time listened to was 6.5 hours. For Vilest Things, because it's an ARC, I can't figure out how many pages are in it, like on my ebook version. It says I'm 56% of the way through it, so I took 56% of the 384 pages that the book is, and that gives us a total of 215 pages that I read just from this book, which is, I feel like, a lot. I'm very proud of that amount for sure, which makes it, I feel like, crazy that I even read more pages than that. I did finish the entirety of Before We Were Strangers. I'm giving this a 4.5. I have an issue with Matt. I have a little issue with him. Not the entire time, just a little issue that I feel like didn't fully hit with me. So 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was 308 pages. And then I read 248 pages of Death of a Bookseller. This is a book. That's for sure. Again, more character-driven books aren't always my go-to thing, so this is definitely more of that. But I just kind of want us to get to the point, essentially, or like one of the points of conflict. I still feel like I have a decent bit of the ways to go, and I don't fully know like what's gonna happen. I think I know what's gonna happen, but I don't also fully know what's gonna happen. Again, I don't think it's a bad book or anything like that. I feel like I'm at least gonna rate it like a 3 at a minimum, I think, because I'm still reading it and I still have questions about it, but I guess we'll just have to see how it ends for me. I definitely like Before We Were Strangers more than this, and I like Violet's Things more than this, so that's definitely why I want to hopefully finish this, and I'm really glad I had time in this video to read it. So 248 pages of this brings my total pages read to 771 pages read during a work trip, along with 6 hours and 30 minutes of audiobook time. That, I don't think I've ever counted pages read before like that. That just feels absolutely wild. I mean, and I understand that, you know, pages and font size and whatever, all that can be different, but I'm still really overall proud of that number. So I don't know. I know traveling for work really takes a lot out of me, but I did get a lot of reading done. So we'll have to see when my next work trip is, and maybe if it's, you know, something similar to how this video is. We'll just have to see. I'm really excited for the rest of September. Next week, I plan to react to the Uglies movie as somebody who loves the Uglies series. And then I'm also meeting Chloe Gong this month, and I'm meeting Aiden Thomas this month, and then we'll have a readathon, and then September's over. That's crazy. So I am really pumped for the rest of the September. And if I don't get to talk about a ton of the other books that I'm reading this month, I might actually do like a September TBR wrap up, because I have a ton of books on my TBR, and I'm feeling really inspired after this initial week. I mean, it's only September 5th, and I've already finished 3 books this month, and so I'm really hopeful that I can actually finish more. And then I might have a pretty good TBR video, and I've never made one of those before, so let me know if you'd want to see something like that. But for now, I'm gonna keep reading Death of a Bookseller, so we'll see how that goes. I'll see you in the next one, and don't forget to keep on reading.